Hello, I'm Charna Davis Wiese, and welcome to UCF Profiles. One of the best things to come out of the crime dramas almost everybody seems to love these days is the fact that young women and little girls, if they get to watch those, get to see female scientists in action. Yes, it's on TV, but that sends out a powerful message. Joining us today is Dr. Leslie Lieberman. She is the founding director of the Women's Research Center, and we're going to be talking about girls and young women and women going into sciences and math and ways we can get the word out and how that can all be made possible. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
You know, I was starting to tell you a little bit before we started the show that I have a cousin who's about 14, 15 years older than me. And she was always, you know, the one who made the curve. She was the smartest in the class and just was very, very intelligent. Everything came easily to her. And I remember being very, very little. And there was a very big commotion in our family that she was going to go to college and she was going to major in math. And that was heresy. It was if she was going to say, I'm going to go and pierce my tongue or something like that. To a very conservative mother and father, the thought of a woman going into math was shocking. And needless to say, she ended up getting a PhD and doing very well and has this wonderful life because she loves it. But there's still that thing today. There's still that, you know, that's not for girls, and that's not true at all. My cousin's probably not the only one to prove that.
That's absolutely correct. And when you look at the information from the SAT scores, certainly girls do as well, at least early on. And then sort of their interests do change. But now there are lots of programs at that level to encourage girls at the middle school in particular to move into math.
Because that's when we lose them.
That is when we lose them. So some of our concerns are how do we get kids interested using media in particular, since they're very geared in that direction, to encourage knowledge in math, but also in other sciences, physical sciences, chemistry, physics, and engineering, where we're really missing a lot of girls.
And a lot of this was really brought to a head and sparked not too long ago when there was that comment about the girls and women not being
from Larry Summers,
not being able to. And if there was anything to get girls to sign up for math and science, that probably would have been that comment.
That's one of them. I think the other thing that's changed today considerably is that there are a lot more models around than there were 15 years ago. And you see women on television, you see them profiled in a number of reality shows. And the set of shows that really got me interested were the CSIs and all the spin-offs, CSI Miami, New York, Crossing Jordan, Cold Case, where you've got women who are assuming a variety of different roles in forensic sciences, but using math, certainly. And then there's the Numbers show on television, and there's a website tie-in. So you're having a lot more women, and there are women on that show as well, a lot more women with these media models of what mathematicians do and what women do in the forensic sciences and other sciences utilizing math. So there's been a big push in applied mathematics. I'm not sure what your sister does, whether she's applied or more theoretically oriented.
You know what? I was an English girl. I was in the humanities. I grew up with the generation that we were petrified of math. It was something very scary to me, and now I see my kids and they're learning it in such fun, practical ways that they love it, and they need help on their homeworks. Go to your dad, you know, go to your older brother, and that may be part of it as well, is that it's becoming something that's not as frightening and not as foreboding.
I think the other thing is that we don't lose out. Even if girls are not turned on to math in high school, there are always other opportunities to go ahead and catch up. Certainly our community colleges with remedial courses mean that if you really didn't take that calculus in high school or really didn't do well in Algebra 2, as I didn't, you can go ahead and take courses later on. So I think it's important to know that there are lots of options, even though we talk about math as a kind of gatekeeper discipline for the sciences and engineering. You don't have to be a whiz in high school to be able to catch up later on. And in talking with women who are engineers, physicists, chemists, I found that many of them don't really develop that interest until they've taken a course in college. And so it's not always the pipeline that starts in elementary school and brings women along. Sometimes it's just a found interest or a professor that really turns people on.
I think also part of it is, and I've seen it doing this show and interviewing professors, I think most of us people outside of the academic world really have no idea the career options open. We were talking about a professor that I interviewed on this show who ended up planning Star Wars technology as a mathematician.
Right.
And I would have never thought about that, even in trying to guide my children to think of what they want to do. So is there a place where you could say, well, I might be interested in physics or math, and is there a place they can go to find out what it can lead to?
Well, I think they can go online. Plus, there are a number of other opportunities. Expanding your horizons brings middle school age girls on campus to experience a wide variety of different activities mounted by the College of Engineering and Computer Sciences. There are many other organizations such as SWE, Society for Women Engineers, that reach out to high school and particularly middle school, but also elementary school, primary school children.
Because to this day I have an elementary school age child, and you'll hear them say, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to be a teacher, which is a great thing, fabulous thing.
Maybe a math teacher.
That's the thing. It's still they're still saying the traditional things we said when I was a little girl.
Right.
You know, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to teach ballet, and it's not even on their radar.
Right.
The other things are not. It's not even on their radar. Yet we lose them in middle school.
But we can find them again. I think that's the other point. They can be found again. So even though the pipeline sort of leaks a bit, you can plug things up, and there are alternative routes. And I think part of what we're trying to do with something like a CSI type of drama, but focusing on women engineers, and there are such a variety of them, that we can bring people bring women and minority men and women who are part of our minority communities into those areas where they're so desperately needed. Later in college, I'm an anthropologist, and we often talk about anthropology as a found discipline. It's taught very rarely in high school. People don't know about it until they're in college. You know, they wanted to take that sociology course for general education credits, and they were locked out of it. So they ended up with this introduction to anthropology or cultural anthropology. And then they find anthropology.
Is that what happened with you?
Well, a little bit differently. I was interested in anthropology primarily because it was a discipline that you could study everything from genetics to ethnomusicology. And so it was a great major if you really were not sure what you wanted to do. And I did some reading in high school, but I didn't really find my particular niche until my junior year in college, when I had a spectacular professor who was teaching a course in physical or biological anthropology.
And it's probably something you didn't even know existed at one point.
Well, certainly at one point I didn't, and I didn't think that's where I was going to go. I was sort of headed for medical school, and then decided that I really like looking at this sort of normal variation, although my career has taken me in lots of different directions, as you know from this interview. I do many things, particularly wearing my hat as director of the Women's Research Center.
Now, what guided you along that journey to get to the point where looking at young women and women entering the math and sciences?
Well, in that capacity, the Women's Research Center, I'm really mostly concerned with faculty women, and part of the mission of the center is to promote women from the UCF campus in terms of their research activities, grant writing workshops, nominating them for awards, bringing prominent women from various disciplines on campus to look at our women faculty. We're such a new university that really doing the PR is part of my job, particularly with regard to women and their research and creative activities.
That's a big job. It's a new but very large.
The sixth largest in the country. Also, I've had some national activities. I've been the president of the National Association of Academies of Science, and there we have an American Junior Academy of Science. So I've had some work with very, very bright and talented high school students. There was a report that came out from the National Academies of Science called The Gathering Storm, which really was a wake-up call that said we need to really do some things to change the way we're recruiting a diverse workforce. particularly in terms of math. It's called the STEM disciplines. That's the acronym: Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And there were some very explicit points in how we were going to do this in terms of changing curriculum in high schools, broadening what is known as public engagement in science. So a lot of non-traditional activities. Our Orlando Science Center is a great example of an organization that we can use to really get the message out about science and technology, engineering, and math.
It's amazing, and the things I've been reading, it seems that more women than ever are going to college. I think it's at some point
Absolutely
this year
right.
it's maybe even more women than men in some universities.
It is.
And yet, when in the sciences, the faculty tends to be largely male.
That's true, and that is one of the areas. And particularly in the sciences, what happens is that industry makes a much better offer to women and men, both in terms of salaries and some of the other perks associated with employment. So it really takes a dedicated individual who wants to work in the environment of the Academy of Higher Education to do that. And we do find that people change careers. Sometimes they'll start out in industry and come back to the university, or there's now some flexibility with university employment, which also allows consulting in industry.
And does a little bit of both. Let's talk about something you did at your last conference.
Yes, we just had the annual Sigma Xi meeting. That's an honor society. It's the Scientific Research Society, and it's really international in scope. Their annual meeting moves around the country, so we were very fortunate to host it in Orlando. And one of the things that we did, which I'm very excited about, is to have a panel exploring the possibilities of developing a TV drama. Maybe it'll be a reality show, but probably a fictional show, very much like the CSIs that have been so effective at bringing women into forensic sciences, forensic chemistry, and we have the largest forensic chemistry program in the country at UCF, forensic anthropology, forensic psychology, all of those areas. 70 to 90% of the applicants now at the undergraduate and graduate level are women. So it's been very successful. And all of those shows, as you probably know from the Nielsen ratings, are in the top 5 or 6 of usually the top 10 shows. So they're always well represented and have an enormous viewership. And they're followed week after week. So what better approach? Well, one better approach might be the computer for the age groups, because that's the internet is also very good. And so we're thinking about using that, what's known as multi-platform. So using a variety of media. But the focus for that particular workshop was really on a TV drama. And we had lots of different ideas that came up, including a wide range of age groups, so maybe more than one drama. It could be time-based, like 24. It could be character-based, like House. People kept mentioning House, which of course is a medical drama. It could be procedurally based, such as the CSIs. You find a dead body and then you go through a series of procedures to solve the case. Or it could be narrative episodes, such as a Medium. So there are lots of models out there. One was a suggestion for an apprentice-type show, but then the solutions and the problems would be involving engineering or physics or chemistry rather than a business model or a business problem.
There's so much, and you know what? We're going to take a really quick break, Dr. Lieberman, and we'll be back in one moment and continue with this. We're back. We're talking with Dr. Leslie Lieberman, and we are talking about women and young girls heading into the sciences and math for career options, and how we're going to get more of them to do that. Now, we were talking about a conference where you were working on developing some kind of television show.
Right.
I just love the idea of an apprentice type thing where they actually have to do something scientific or mathematical, because it opens up the world of science and math to people where they don't realize it. I was telling you before about my cousin who's a mathematician, and my sister who's much more like me in the arts and the humanities and music, and they went to Europe together, and when they were in Rome, she said, my cousin saw math everywhere, in the way the buildings were built, in the way the bricks and the blocks were on the ground. She said at first it was annoying to her, and then suddenly it was amazing to her that math was all around her, and she never realized it.
Well, I think that our disciplinary orientation really allows us to see and filter things in our environments that are very different. But one of the big moves is to get more people to really see the math in their environment, and how important it is, and how that really is used in terms of construction and engineering all around us. One of the groups that has really spearheaded a larger media approach, so that we're all sort of on the same page, it's getting the same message in terms of social marketing, is the recognition by the National Academy of Engineering that we need some sort of mass media. It's interesting that, at least in one study about 5 years ago, of 177 corporations, they were spending over $400 million a year really advertising engineering and science. But the message was really not getting out because it was so diverse. Nobody was on the same page. It wasn't a got milk kind of message. And so now at the national level, we're really looking at getting the same message out, and what better than to use a medium such as television or even the internet, depending on the age group that you're looking at, that you're focusing or targeting. And so there's been a national effort, and when we talked about the workshop that we did, the panel at Sigma Xi, that was part of it. 3 weeks previously, there was a meeting in Milwaukee that I was invited to attend that also brought together, as we did, producers, directors, screenwriters, actors, scientists, and engineers to try to brainstorm what we might do. Who should be the audience? What should be the medium? Should it be an apprentice-type show? Should it be more like Dora the Explorer, something cartoon-like? Well, certainly, depending on the age group that you're targeting, there are different approaches.
So then the problem is, once you agree on something and get it together, you have to sell it and get it on the air. That's the hardest part.
It is very difficult, and I was just beginning to realize that from my colleagues in film and digital media, how difficult and how expensive it is. Even if you're targeting cable television and not some of the larger channels, networks, some of the larger networks. So I think that may have come out of this particular project with Sigma Xi is that we're going to do snippets. And snippets will be 2 to 3 minute productions. Some will be character-based, some will be reality, some of them will be time-based fiction, some of them may even be cartoons that will mount on the internet, which is a wonderful way to get them out there for modest costs, lots of rapid feedback, very diverse audiences. If you actually build a following on the internet, you can have a much better chance of selling it to individuals.
I like those jib-jab guys. You know who I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where they do the politicians and they move their mouths and they make up these crazy songs.
Yeah.
It was, they were, I think, 2 brothers playing around on the internet, and then Jay Leno heard about it, and now they're marketing everything from coffee cups to underwear.
If it could only happen to us to market engineering, math, and the sciences.
Right. You have to find the hook. You have to find the angle that's going to really get everybody talking about it. That is true. And some of the reading I've been doing, I read about a place called Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology. And on the internet, I was Googling, and I found out about this particular school, and I imagine it's in the DC area because it was in the Washington Post. And it was an article about getting girls interested in the sciences. And it said towards the senior level, and especially in the advanced or honors classes, there would be maybe one girl or maybe no girls, and they were attracted to other parts of science. And the professors there were thinking, well, interviewing the girls, why do you think this? What's going on here? And they felt that inherent personality differences, whether, I don't know if that's true or not, or it's just the stereotype, that some of the sciences tend to be more conflict, more taking an established thought and trying to deal with that, or trying to go in a different direction, more of a conflict. When the girls were more attracted to more collaborative sciences like biology or sciences you'd work in a group, and the boys seemed to be more interested in the solitary ones that might have more conflict. Does that sound like that might be a case, or maybe just in this one particular high school, because they wanted to get the girls into more of the solitary sciences, the chemistry and things like that.
And in fact, all of those sciences are collaborative. You can't do it alone any longer, and nor can you do it with people who are just in your disciplines. So most of the people I know work collaboratively across disciplines. So I don't know about that particular high school. My experience has been with the Harlem Children's Society. And we both in
Harlem as in New York?
Harlem in New York. And we had 6 students here this summer. And
here in Orlando?
In Orlando on the UCF campus. And last year we had 6 in Cocoa who were at the Florida Space Institute. That first year there were 4 women and 2 men, and this year we had 3 and 3.
Now how old are they? What age students?
The age range is 15 to 21, so it's high school through the first couple of years of college, which is really wonderful because those college-age students come back into the program and mentor the younger students. Each student gets a stipend and a wonderful experience, which is quite rigorous in terms of the requirements. But what has happened, when those students are screened in the New York, New Jersey area, and they go to Bronx High School of Science, Manhattan Tech, and there are lots of girls represented there. Now they are self-selected to go to those magnet schools, so you already have an interest, but they're certainly not wanting from physics and chemistry classes as well as biology. All of those areas you can devise experiential activities that involve collaboration and cooperation, and also other modes of learning. Even a class that I attended a number of years ago when I first got to UCF looked at new ways of concept mapping, that is using words and concepts for basic ideas in chemistry. And we know women tend to feel more comfortable using verbal approaches as opposed to boys.
For whatever reason. Maybe the way we're socialized, whatever.
And so utilizing that facility, both men and women, boys and girls in this particular class, did a concept map using words, not numbers, to look at some basic ideas about what is matter, what are gases, what's a mole.
You're probably a wonderful example of starting out in anthropology in one place and becoming so involved with this in another, of how your career can take a different direction and you can collaborate and use all kinds of different fields.
Very much so. I'm really not a high-tech person, yet I found myself, having moved to UCF, that I'm doing more and more with technology. I never thought as an individual that I would be using GPS or GIS and digital media. Yet we've had funding for it's called Busing to Better Health project. And Busing to Better Health is on the Television Transit Network, which is a closed-circuit television network on the buses in Orlando, on the Lynx buses. There are 3 screens. If you've not ridden on one of the buses, there are 3 screens on the buses, much like the old-style airplane screens, as opposed to those now in front of your seat. And it is closed circuit, so you can put programming on these screens. They're also linked into the GPS system to announce stops. And so we've tried to actually link some of our ethnic communities. As an anthropologist, I'm concerned about messages that are linguistically and culturally tailored to different populations. So the same message doesn't fit all, but we're able to link these to the bus routes and the neighborhoods on the bus routes and get out messages to communities along the bus routes who are primarily Haitian communities or Mexican American communities or Puerto Rican communities with these tailored messages. The messages we've been using thus far because of our funding have been on smoking and tobacco use in a variety of ways. So I never thought I would couple my anthropological interest in medical anthropology and health with using a high-tech way of delivering these messages to about 40,000 riders a day.
See, that's the thing about technology. Granted, there are pitfalls and there are problems and there are dangers. However, never in our history has there ever been an easier, faster, more accessible way to get information out to a large population.
And repeatedly. I think those messages, that's the other beauty, is that if you have a television drama, then every week, at least for a season, of course, then you get them in repeats, you reach the same audience or a similar audience, and it's very large. People become invested in the characters, in the mystery and intrigue and hype of many of these programs. It keeps them coming back.
Dealing with all of this and with your own history and meeting all these people from the Harlem Project and the professors, if you had advice for a young girl or a young woman who wants to maybe venture into something that maybe is not typically a field for women, what would your advice be?
Well, I think it would be very helpful to go ahead and shadow someone.
There's always somebody.
There's always somebody there, and I would choose somebody who might be very interesting, and it may not be somebody you know, but it's somebody else knows. And so if you're interested in aerospace engineering, get your connection at Kennedy Space Center or NASA and go follow someone around, if possible.
Go use that technology and you'll find it.
Yeah, if you're interested in medicine, apprentice yourself for a while to someone who is actually doing the job.
Having that mentor can mean everything. Dr. Lieberman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again next time. We'll see you again next time on UCF Profiles.